5 movements. No gym, no equipment, nothing to buy, and about 15 minutes. Between them, these 5 cover the joints and directions where most people are stiff: hips, spine, ankles, knees, shoulders, and upper back. If you only had time for one mobility routine, this is the one I would build. Quick test before we start. Stand up and without moving your feet, turn and look behind you over your left shoulder. Now the right. If one side went noticeably further than the other, or if you found yourself shuffling your feet to get there, keep watching because 2 of these 5 are aimed directly at that. I am going to show you all 5, how to do each one properly, what to do if you cannot yet, and then exactly how to combine them into a routine. The 5th one is the one most people are missing, and I will explain why when we get there. Let's start with the first, because it does more work than any other single movement on this list. The world's greatest stretch. The name is ridiculous, and you may have seen athletes doing it on a field before a game without knowing what it was. It looks like a lunge that somebody got creative with. Here is why it earns the name. Most stretches take one joint in one direction. This one moves your hip flexors, your hamstrings, your groin, your ankle, and your mid-back in a single sequence on one leg at a time. It is not 5 stretches performed quickly. It is one movement that happens to open 5 things at once, which is why it is worth more of your attention than the other 4. Here is how to do it. Start standing, then step your right foot forward into a long lunge. Long, not short. The distance between your feet is what puts the stretch into your back hip. Drop your left knee toward the floor, or leave it hovering. Place both hands on the floor on the inside of your right foot. If your hands do not reach, put them on a couple of books or the seat of a chair. Nothing here requires you to be flexible already. Take a moment there. For a lot of people, that position alone is plenty. Then, keeping your left hand down, rotate your torso to the right and reach your right arm up toward the ceiling. Follow your hand with your eyes and let your chest open upward. That is your mid-back doing the work. Hold at the top for a breath. Bring the hand down. Repeat. 5 each side, slowly. No bouncing, and the reach up is not a swing. It is a slow unwinding. Here is the part most people get wrong. The rotation should come from your rib cage, not your lower back. If you feel it low near the belt line, you are twisting from the wrong place. Turn your chest, not your waist, and notice how far your hand actually gets. If it stops well short of vertical, that is not a shoulder that is tight, it is a mid-back that will not rotate, and it is the same restriction that showed up in that turning test at the start. If the full version is too much today, split it. Just the lunge with hands down, 30 seconds. Then the rotation separately from kneeling. Put them together when you are ready. That single movement handles a large amount of your body. But there is one direction it barely touches, and it happens to be the one that goes first. 90-90 hip switches. Your hip is a ball and socket joint, which means it does not just bend and straighten. It rotates, inward and outward, like a key turning in a lock. And rotation is the thing almost nobody trains. Think about how you actually move. If you walk, cycle, or use a treadmill, you are moving your hips forward and backward, over and over, thousands of times a week. Every one of those repetitions is the same direction. You are almost never rotating them. That matters more than it sounds. Hip rotation is what you use to turn and look behind you when reversing a car. It is what lets you swivel to get out of a low seat instead of hauling yourself up. It is what happens every time you turn to reach for something without moving your feet. And when it goes, the work does not disappear, it gets reassigned. You start turning your whole torso to do jobs your hips should be doing, and your lower back picks up the difference. A great many people who describe a stiff back are actually describing stiff hips that their back has been covering for. So here is the movement. Sit on the floor. Bend your front leg in front of you so the knee and ankle both make roughly a 90-degree angle with the shin running across your body. Set your back leg out to the also bent at about 90 degrees. From above, your legs make 2 right angles, hence the name sit up tall. Hands on the floor behind you for support if you need them. Most people do it first. Now the switch. Lift both knees slightly, rotate through your hips, and bring the legs over to the mirror image position on the other side. Slowly and with control. This is not a flop from one side to the other. 10 switches total, 5 each direction. Try just getting into the position and notice something. For most people, one side is markedly easier than the other. That asymmetry is worth knowing about. It usually matches the side you cross your legs on, or the hip you sit into when you drive. If sitting on the floor like this is uncomfortable, sit on a folded blanket or cushion. Raising your hips a few inches changes the angle at the hip and makes the position dramatically more accessible. That is not a compromise. It is how most people should start. And if the switch itself is beyond you right now, hold each side for 20 or 30 seconds and lean gently forward over the front leg. The switching comes later before we move on. The fifth exercise is the one I would bet you are missing. It covers a region that most home routines skip entirely, and it is the one where people tend to notice a difference soonest. Keep it in mind through the next two, because now we need to leave the hips and talk about something running down the middle of you. Cat-cow. You have almost certainly seen this one. It looks like the gentlest thing in this video, and it is the one people most often perform badly because they treat it as a stretch. It is not really a stretch. It is a control exercise, and that distinction changes how you should perform it. Your spine is not a rod. It is roughly 24 separate bones with joints between them, and each one is supposed to contribute a small amount of movement. Add up 24 small contributions, and you get a spine that curves smoothly. When you sit for years, they stop moving independently. Some segments get stiff and stop contributing, and the ones on either side start doing extra to make up for it. The spine begins behaving like one stiff segment that hinges in 2 or 3 places instead of bending along its whole length. That uneven distribution is part of why one specific spot in a back tends to be the spot that always aches. Cat-cow is how you teach those segments to take their own share again, which is why the speed matters so much. Done fast, you are just rocking a stiff spine back and forth and confirming the pattern you already have. Done slowly, you are asking each vertebra to take its turn. Get on your hands and knees. Hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips. Start from a flat back for the cow. Begin the movement at your tailbone. Tip it up toward the ceiling and let that motion travel up your spine like a wave. Lower back, mid-back, upper back, and let your head come up last. Not thrown back, just last. For the cat, reverse it and start at the tailbone again. Tuck it under, then round the lower back, then the mid-back, then let your head drop at the end. Push the floor away with your hands so your upper back can actually round. That whole cycle should take about 5 seconds each way. 10 repetitions is enough. The mistake to avoid. Most people move the whole spine at once, in one lump, and just nod their head at the ends. If you cannot feel the movement traveling, if it arrives everywhere simultaneously, slow down until you can. That traveling sensation is the entire point of the exercise. Now we have covered a lot of your body. But there is one position that human beings used to sit in comfortably for hours, and most adults today cannot hold for 30 seconds. The deep squat hold. Not a squat as an exercise. A squat as a resting position. Heels down, hips all the way to the ankles, sitting there. Watch a small child pick something up off the floor. They drop straight into this position without thinking, stay there while they investigate whatever they found, and stand back up. Nobody taught them. It is simply what a hip, knee, and ankle are capable of when nothing has interfered with them. What interferes is chairs, decades of them. Sitting at 90 degrees keeps your hips and knees parked in the middle of their range and never asks them to visit the end of it. Meanwhile, your ankles, in shoes with any kind of raised heel, never have to bend as far as a bare foot on a floor would demand. Do that for 30 or 40 years, and the bottom of the range quietly closes, and when it closes, you feel it in ordinary places rather than athletic ones. Getting something out of a low cupboard, kneeling to plug something in behind the television, getting down to the floor with a child or a pet, and the harder half, getting back up. There is also a knock-on effect worth naming. When you cannot get low with your hips and ankles, you get low by bending your back instead. Every low pickup becomes a rounded spine lift. That is not the reason to do this exercise, but it is a good reason not to skip it. So here is how to work on it. Stand with your feet a little wider than your hips, toes turned slightly out. Now lower yourself all the way down, keeping your heels on the floor, until your hips are as low as they will go. Most people's heels lift, or they fall backward, and both are normal. Here is the fix, and it is the single most useful tip in this section. Hold on to something. A door frame, a heavy table leg, the kitchen counter. Holding on lets you sit back into the position without falling, and it lets your heels stay down. You will get dramatically deeper this way. The other option is to put something under your heels, a folded towel, a book. Raising the heel an inch or so takes the ankle out of the equation and lets your hips do their part. That is a legitimate way to train this, not a cop-out. Once you are down there, aim for 30 seconds. If 30 is too long, do 3 sets of 10. Work toward 2 minutes over the coming weeks. While you are down there, keep your chest reasonably upright and let your knees track out over your toes rather than collapsing inward. And if you feel sharp pain in the front of the knee, come out. Discomfort in the muscle and a stretch through the ankle are fine. Sharp joint pain is not, and if you have had knee surgery or a diagnosed knee problem, use the heel-raised version or check with a physio first. 4 down, 1 to go. But before I show you the fifth, I want to say something about who this routine is actually for. Most people who go looking for something like this are not athletes chasing a better performance. They are people who notice something. Getting off the floor takes a hand on the furniture now. Reaching the top shelf involves a small hop. Turning to check a blind spot takes the shoulders, then the ribs, then a bit of the neck, and it did not used to take all three. None of that arrives on a particular day. It accumulates so gradually that most people never register a moment when things changed. And here is the part worth understanding. Very little of that is your age doing it on its own. Most of it is range you stopped using. Joints follow a simple rule. The range you visit regularly you keep. The range you never visit you slowly lose access to, which means the process runs both ways. This is not about becoming flexible. It is about going back for range you already had once, and then visiting it often enough that it stays yours. That is what these 5 are for. And the last one covers the region where the loss usually shows first, wall angels. Here is why I said you are probably missing this one. Nearly every home routine covers hips, hamstrings, and lower back. Almost none of them cover the upper back and shoulders, and that is where a sedentary life shows up first and most obviously. Sitting at a desk, holding a phone, driving, reading, all of it pulls you into the same shape. Upper back rounded forward, shoulders drawn in, head slightly ahead of the body. Hold that shape for enough years and your body adapts to it. The mid-back loses its ability to extend. The shoulders lose external rotation, and then you try to reach something directly overhead, and you cannot get your arm to vertical without arching your lower back to compensate. Most people assume that is a shoulder problem. Usually, it is a mid-back problem wearing a shoulder costume. The shoulder cannot reach overhead because the spine underneath it will not extend. Wall angels work on both at the same time. Stand with your back against a wall, feet about 6 inches out from it. Press your lower back, upper back, and the back of your head against the wall. That alone is a challenge for a lot of people, and if your head will not touch without cranking your chin up, do not force it. Get as close as you can with your chin level. Bring your arms up into a goalpost. Elbows bent at 90 degrees. Upper arms out to the sides at shoulder height. Press the backs of your hands, forearms, and elbows against the wall. Stop there for a second, because that position is a test in itself. If your forearms will not touch the wall, you have just found the restriction this exercise exists to fix. Now slide your arms slowly up the wall, straightening them overhead, keeping everything in contact. Then slide back down until your elbows are just below shoulder height. That is 1 repetition. 10. Slowly, the universal mistake. As the arms go up, the lower back arches away from the wall to let them get there. That defeats the exercise entirely, because now the movement is coming from your spine instead of your shoulders. Keep your ribs down and your lower back flat. You will not go nearly as high. That is fine, and it is honest. Only go as far as you can while staying in contact. If keeping your back flat is impossible standing, do it lying on the floor with your knees bent. Gravity is more forgiving, and the floor gives clearer feedback. That is all 5. And now you have a problem you did not have 10 minutes ago. You know the 5 movements, but knowing 5 movements is not the same as having a routine. 5 good exercises with no sets, no order, and no frequency is a list. And lists do not change anybody's mobility. So here is the routine. World's greatest stretch. 5 repetitions each side, slowly. Roughly 3 minutes, 90-90 hip switches. 10 switches, 5 each direction, controlled. Roughly 2 to 3 minutes, cat-cow. 10 slow cycles, 5 seconds each direction. Roughly 2 minutes, deep squat hold. 30 seconds to 2 minutes, holding on to support as needed. Break it into sets if you need to. Roughly 3 minutes, wall angels, 10 slow repetitions staying in contact with the wall. Roughly 2 minutes. That comes to somewhere between 12 and 15 minutes of actual work. Call it 15 to 20 with the time you spend getting into and out of positions. Do it 3 to 4 times a week, not every day. Mobility work responds to consistency rather than volume, and 4 focused sessions a week will do considerably more than 7 rushed ones. Order matters a little. Start with the world's greatest stretch because it warms everything up. Finish with wall angels because they are the most precise, and you want your attention on them. The middle 3 can go in any order you like, and if 15 minutes is not realistic on a given day, do 2 of the 5 rather than none. A short session you actually do beats a complete session you keep postponing. What should you expect? In the first week or 2, mostly a feeling of looseness afterwards that fades by the next day. That is normal, and it is not nothing. It means the tissue is responding. By around 4 to 6 weeks, if you have been reasonably consistent, the change tends to show up somewhere unexpected. Not in the exercises themselves, but in ordinary movement. Reaching the back seat of the car. Getting off the floor without planting a hand. Turning without the whole body shuffle. Beyond that, progress becomes slower and steadier. Range comes back roughly in the order you lost it, which means the things that went first come back last. Be patient with the deep squat in particular. That one can take months, and it is worth them. So look at what these 5 actually cover between them. The world's greatest stretch handles the hip flexors, hamstrings, and mid-back rotation. The 90-90 handles hip rotation, which nothing else on this list touches. Cat-cow handles segmental spinal control. The deep squat handles the bottom of your ankle, knee, and hip range. Wall angels handle thoracic extension and shoulder rotation. 5 movements, 5 different jobs, no overlap. That is why it is a short list rather than a long one. Every entry is there because nothing else covers what it covers. Pick a day this week. Do it once badly with support at whatever range you have got. Then do it again 2 days later. That is genuinely the whole plan.